Hey everybody, welcome back to What's on a Shelf? My new series where I look at a shelf in my game room and I say, what's on there? I'm also going to ask a couple questions at the end of the video. One is, what game do I want to play from that shelf right now? Which one is just really lighting a fire inside of me? And the second thing is, if I had to, which game would I sell? So, let's get to it. You've probably already guessed by now, I'm sitting right next to the bookshelf, right? Yeah, that's it. It's this one right here. This is the shelf I'm going to take a look at, starting with the Search for Planet X, all the way around here to Wingspan, stopping at this like actual shelf right here. And let me tell you, when I was looking up these games on Board Game Geek, they do not rank lower than a 7. Favorability, like 7 out of 10, all the way up to 8.1. And that's pretty good. These are really liked games by the general public, and they range in that middle strategy. So, you know, kind of like medium 2 maybe 2.2, all the way to a 3.5, difficulty on a scale of 5. So they are your medium weight strategy games. There are some cooperative games in here. There are some individual competitive games in here. Let's take a look at them, starting with the Search for Planet X. This is a competitive deduction game, and it just has the neatest mechanism of being able to find information, but only at certain times, because you have this kind of wheel of locations that are only visible at certain times in the game. And so you're not able to see certain places and get access to information at times in the game. And so that there's a really interesting restriction for hunting. And the other thing is that you are essentially placing your bets, or your kind of like, I think it's this and I'm going to wager this much in a space. But you also have these decoy tokens, because you've got this secret guard and you're like making all these notes and you're getting intel, and I mean, this is the kind of deduction game where you have a sheet of paper and you have like all these different columns and rows and stuff, and you're like, well, I found out this is not next to that because of that, and there's only 3 of these things in this quadrant, and you're just getting all this intel, and everyone's getting different intel at different times. And so you come at finding where Planet X is, which zone is it in, from totally different points. And everyone starts off with one piece of information that is different from everyone else. So you've got a starting point, and it really gives you your strategy. I like this game. I like it a lot. I don't know if I win it. I don't know if that's the case, but I like it, and I want to play it, and I always want to find out where Planet X is. I love a good deduction game, and I love a race game, and that's what the Search for Planet X is. Okay, moving on to the game beneath it, Anno 1800. This game has really captured my heart, and I might actually say has taken the top spot of any Martin Wallace game, which is kind of hard and cool, and it's exciting. The more and more I play it, the more and more I like it. Now, I liked it the first time I played it, and I think the thing that makes this game so cool is that players have their own area, and they have all of these different things that give them resources, and these resources are broken down into different colored cubes. And that's going to allow them to invest in other things that they bring to their area, and it's just this kind of resource management, engine building kind of game. But it's not just that. There are also these cards. And it's a card game, ultimately, because the last player to play down their final card from their hand triggers the end of the game, and then you score up all your victory points, and there are different ways to get those victory points. But there's a lot of stuff going on. When you set this board out and you put all these different resource squares, like these little tiles out, it can be so overwhelming, and you're like, what? And then I've got to get this to get that, to get that, to get that, to get that. I mean, the kinds of moves you have to make just like 5 steps ahead of you in this game is what makes this game so interesting and complex. I really like it. I like the thinky part of it. It is a longer game. It's a heavier game, and it takes time to play, but I really enjoy this game, and I love how it just goes. You just play. There's no rounds. You just go. Player does this, player does that, player does that, and at some point, you're going to have to return all of your resources and recharge, essentially. It's like your round where you don't do anything, but you just put everything back, and then you get to use all your stuff again. So when you expend your resources, you expend them until you choose to take all of your stuff back and kind of start over fresh with all your cool stuff again. And I love the tile placement where you can grow your space with new tiles, exploring new lands that bring you a cool secret thing that you don't know what it is, and it's going to help you in some way. There's shipping, there's goods and resource management, you're going to build technology things. Loads of fun. What a wonderful management system. You've really got to keep a lot of things going all at once. And again, the game just continues to grow on you the more and more you play it. Next up, Arkham Horror and Arkham Horror Kingsport Horror Expansion. Now, I'm going to talk about those kind of at the same time, but really I'm just going to mention that I don't think I've played with this. So the thing, what's on a shelf? An expansion that I don't know about, and I haven't played with. So Arkham Horror, though, as just a base game, I mean, come on, it's just a phenomenally thematic game. When I think about Arkham Horror, it's always about your health and your sanity, having a really interesting, unique character that you pick in the beginning that starts off with cool stuff and has unique stats, and so it's got that RPG feel. Everyone's working together, and so you are working cooperatively to overcome these dark mythic beasts, and you're going into all of these cool locations. So there's exploration, there's collecting all these different items and resources to help you do things, there's fighting, there's losing your sanity, hopefully not losing your sanity, but that can definitely happen, or losing your health. There's just so much adventure and excitement, and I love that you're playing together, and I love the story world that this lives in. This is just that, you know, Cthulhu world, and it's just got fun language, fun mechanics. I really can get into a game of this. It scales 1 to 8. I think it's better, and so does BGG. With 4 or around 4, I think with 8 it just might take a whole lot of time, but then you've got like the coolest team ever who are trying to, you know, defeat the old gods. So really, really fun, wholly thematic adventure exploration game. And I just love that you just keep collecting cards and every card does something else. You've just got piles and piles of cards, these little teeny tiny ones too, right? That tell you that you've got some kind of scar or impediment that gives you certain weapons or items, or just really fun situations or circumstances that change the game. And so wholly dynamic, never going to be the same kind of experience with Arkham Horror. As I said, I don't know what's in here, and it's at the bottom, so it's hard to pull out. Maybe you can tell me in the comments below what's in the expansion and how does it change the game. But I haven't personally experienced it, so I can't attest to that. And you'll probably find out as I do the what's on a shelf more and more that there are some games in our basement that I haven't played, or if I have, I don't remember them because it's been so long, or I just don't remember it because just too many things have happened since. So yeah, some games I just haven't gotten to, and I think the expansions are really hard to get to. Adding to the base game and really finding the same group of people to play the game, but then to play it with the expansion, because I always love playing games with the base experience first and then adding on more and more, just to make sure everyone's all on the same page. All right, moving on to Wingspan. We're just going to go back down this one now. So Wingspan and then the Oceania expansion, and if you look right here, ooh, European expansion. So I'm going to kind of make that one whole section here, and a nice segue from here. I haven't played with the European expansion or the Oceania expansion, but I bought them anyway. I bought them anyway because Wingspan is a beautiful game. It's got a wonderful, clean system. and I think it's just smart. And so it's nice to have all of the expansions to go with the game because it's going to be a game that stays in the collection. It's going to be a game that I share with people who have not played a clever 1-hour strategy game that has beautiful components and artwork and just is fun to play. Wingspan is a competitive bird watching game where you're actually collecting all of these birds and you're putting them into these 3 rows. And every time you play a card down into your space and you're collecting these cards, building your engine, you get to activate the birds that have come before it in that particular row. And that's what makes this game really interesting, and it makes it that much more complex when it comes to strategy. You've got to really, really work that system and plan out what you're going to do so that you have a really nice tableau and a nice engine. There are all these things you can do, like collect food, and the way the food works is really fascinating with this dice tower and rolling the food dice. And so not all the food is going to be plentiful every time you roll those dice, and it kind of replicates the food system out in just nature and in like an outdoor habitat. You may not find all the worms when you need the worms. You may not find all the other kinds of things that you need for food. But that's how that works, and I think it's really fascinating. So there might be, you know, a lot of one thing sometime, and then like a real disparity of something another time. Birds also lay eggs, and eggs are really important. They're kind of wobbly and a little tough because if you knock them over, you got man hands and you can't pick them up. But they're really cool because they're nice 3D eggs, and they kind of remind me of Easter. So you got these cutie eggs, you got wonderful foods, and you've got these beautiful birds, and there's so much wonderful fun stuff on these cards, all these stats and details and information about these birds and their natural habitat and just like their length and what they eat. It's all just so fascinating. I love how the information, how that insight into this world is so immersive in this game. And when you're just looking at the birds and you're just interested in learning about birds, I mean, that's amazing. I think that's kind of a wonderful aspect to Wingspan. It's also obviously a really great game, but it works incredibly well as just entertaining and thematic because you just want to learn about birds. Okay, moving on to Paleo. For 2 to 4 players, takes about an hour to play. It is a cooperative game where players take on these people. They are fighters or they're scouts, and they have certain hit points, which is their health, and they also have a special ability. Some players are just really strong. Like the people are strong, and they don't give you an ability other than they just have a lot of health. And so they can take a lot of damage before they, unfortunately, if they do pass and then they die and you get a skull. But players are going to control these people, and they're going to essentially go out and explore, and they're going to find food, and they're going to paint cave paintings. And it's just wonderfully themed, set in the Stone Age. And everyone's working together to, you know, do all these things, keep the campfire going, fight off the enemies, kill mammoths, and just survive. And it's a really cool game because the way it works is by drawing cards. And players all play a card simultaneously, but they don't necessarily know what the other side of the card is going to do because all the cards for each game, they're shuffled up and then dealt out into equal piles. And then players are going to take a pile in front of them, face down, and then flip a card over. And then they're going to have an option to do something if they can. And so they're going to be able to apply their skills to gain more tools and weapons. They might have an attack like a snake bite, or they might get stuck somewhere in a rock fall. Who knows? They're just events. They're really cool, like asteroid events that can show up and bring cool stuff to your tribe. It's really immersive in its theme, and I love the cooperative nature of Paleo, and I have played a lot of it. And I think that because there are so many different decks and there are so many different cards to get to and things that you can experience, there's a lot there. And by the time you get through the whole thing, you can go back and experience everything and not remember, you know, the certain paths or the cards or the events and stuff. So I think this is just a really fun, exciting adventure game that you win together or you lose together. And lastly, Mariposas. by the same designer as Wingspan. We've got our Elizabeth Hargrave games in the same space. Mariposas is a really wonderful light story. It's really kind of abstract in the sense that it's just a bunch of hexes on a board, but it really shows this flight, this migration of the butterflies from Mexico up through the US and then back again. And that's what you're doing in this game, is you are essentially controlling butterflies that will continually mate and hatch larvae and make more butterflies, and you'll have bigger butterflies that have like more victory points, and you'll want to fly them back down once they get kind of like leveled up to 4, or in some cases you have 2 4s that are on the same one that you flip your little butterfly disc over, and you get to score them, 2 of them at the same time with just 1 movement. And the thing here that's really fun is players have cards, and they have to choose, well, do I play this card or do I play that card? And you play it down, and in your tableau, in each different month, you have a certain amount of cards you can play, and that tells you exactly what butterflies can move, how far they can move, and how many can move. And so you do that and draw another card up, and you look at your cards. So every time it's not your turn, you're like, well, I'm just going to do this one, or I'm going to do that one. It's super easy. And so you're trying to meet the objectives for the season, which are at the bottom of the map, but there's so much to do and explore, and you're really competing with all the other players. It's a little cutthroat when it comes to the way stations and you know, gaining certain bonuses and cards, but it's really, really thematic. It's lighter in gameplay and mechanics than Wingspan is, and I find that I've actually played much more of Mariposas than Wingspan whenever I'm trying to play with groups of people who want to, you know, experience a lighter to a medium level or weight strategy game. This is a lot easier to pick up on with the rules than Wingspan is. It's a little bit more complex with Wingspan. But both games, perfectly wonderful strategy. I just find that Mariposas is one that just keeps coming back out, and I keep, you know, finding the combinations of those goals for each of those particular seasons just change. You shuffle them up and you deal it out. You never know what you're going to get. And those places where you have those tokens that you flip over are going to be in totally different spaces every single time you play. Really great 5-player game as well. I've had some wonderful experiences with Mariposas in 5 players, and I think it's great to have a good go-to 5-player game because those are kind of hard to come by. All right, comes down to my final 2 questions. Now that we're done taking a look at what's on this shelf, the game that I want to jump into right now, the game that I feel most inspired to play at this time, that's a really hard question because after I explained every single one of these, I wanted to play it right away. And I know I didn't feel that whenever I went through my last What's on a Shelf. And I'm looking at these games thinking, you know what, I want to play this. Now I'm going to say one game, and there's going to be a very specific reason why. So I think the game that I want to jump into right now is actually Wingspan. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to incorporate the Oceania expansion and the European expansion and test them out and try them. I can't believe I've had them with the base game and haven't actually pulled it out and played it. It's ridiculous. I mean, shame on me. But this gives me the perfect excuse to pull both of those expansions down and see what's in this and how does it add to Wingspan as a base game. And here is the moment of truth. If I had to, which of these games would I sell right now? None. None of them. None of them. I don't want to get rid of any of these games. But what I would say, and maybe this is really bad, but what I would say is that if I had to dump something, maybe like I'd sell back Kingsport horror expansion because I don't know what's in there. And when I pulled this out, it weighed about 20 pounds and it's just crammed with stuff. And what that tells me is there's plenty of game in that. There's plenty of game in that base game that I've got right there. And I don't know if I'm missing anything by not having this expansion. So tough choices, and I know it was almost like a half choice because it's an expansion, but it's still a game on this shelf and it's still an investment. So I'm gonna count it because I am not getting rid of any of these games. I mean, wow. I mean, oh, they're so good. I'm so pleased. This is a phenomenal shelf. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Which of these is your favorite game to play? Which one would you love to try that you haven't had a chance to play yet? And which of these would you maybe give the axe to? All right, thanks for joining me for What's on a Shelf, and I'll see you next time for my third installment of What's on a Shelf? What's on a shelf?